But what causes them to change from green to yellow, orange, and red? Leaves are green in color because they contain chlorophyll. As the growing season comes to an end, leaves gradually lose that chlorophyll and other pigments become more active. The interaction determines which color the leaf will turn. More of one pigment can change a leaf from green to orange, whereas the presence of a different pigment may make that leaf more red. In some plants, the color is quite uniform, while in others, the colors vary widely. Each plant species is unique, and color changes are typically gradual. The right weather can intensify or dampen fall colors. Each species of tree has its own unique biological needs. Too much or not enough of any particular need can change the coloring process. Trees need the right mixture of sun, wind, or rain to reach prime color. Some years, strong gusty winds will knock the leaves off too early, allowing for less bright colors. From the mountains to the coast, peak leaf changes happen at different times, starting in the highest elevations where the cold weather arrives first. For us, these changes typically begin in the mountains around early October, but don't peak in Charlotte and the rest of the Piedmont until the start of November. With your Weather IQ, I'm meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees.
And now, I think the main concern this year, like you were explaining the different factors, probably not enough rain in the last little bit. So there's some drought stress to it. We've had some of it pause the last couple of weeks with some higher humidity and a little bit more heat. But I think right now that we get these cool mornings back, you're going to start to activate that again. So I wouldn't think this weekend is the best to get up there, but I think next weekend and maybe the weekend after should have a lot of good opportunity for fall color as the chlorophyll, or as Adam Sandler used to say, more like borophyll, that's going to be flying away. And so we should see that nicer color. You ever see Billy Madison before? That's what that's from.
I have, but I don't remember that. So, oh my goodness. Well, it's October 22nd.
It's a
I'm
classic.
going leaf peeping. You're welcome to take off work and come. Claire can come do live weather impact with Brad.
Not with the way she drives, Tim.
Live shots. Live shots on the Parkway.
He said not with the way she dresses. And I was like,
No,
excuse
drives,
me.
not with the way
Excuse
you
me, James.
drive.
Oh my
Drive.
gosh.
That's how you drive.
Well, this
Maybe
live
that's how
weather
they're driving on the Roval this weekend.
If you drove like this on the Roval, you ain't winning. That's all I'm gonna say.
No. It's true.
It's a great weekend. We have, of course, the Roval 400. We're super excited about it. That's, again, a live picture there from Charlotte Motor Speedway. Last year, it was 81 degrees on October 13th, which was the day of the Roval. We're looking at pretty similar weather this weekend. Tim, you going to watch? You going to keep up with the Roval?
I saw Larry Sprinkle out there earlier. I might have to get out there and check it out.
All right. Well, I hope you win.
Good evening, everyone. Just after 7 p.m. here on a Friday night, I'm Jane Monreal. You're watching Live Impact News here on WCNC Plus, usually here in the mornings, but taking over the night drive this time around. Right now, we do want to get to the latest. If you have not heard, Sean Diddy Combs sentenced now. His sentencing was today. He has been sentenced to 4 years in prison. The defense, his team, saying that he has been punished enough, and prosecutors did want him to get at least 10 years in prison. The latest now from CNN after his sentencing here on WCNC Plus.
A judge has sentenced Sean Diddy Combs to 50 months behind bars. It's less than what the prosecution was asking for and recommended, but more than the defense was asking for. The judge says he was not convinced that if he sentenced Combs to lesser time that he would not commit these crimes again, and said, quote, "A substantial sentence must be given to send a message to abusers and victims alike that abuse against women is met with real accountability," unquote. Now, he did acknowledge that Combs is an entrepreneur, that he's done a lot for his community, and that he is a devoted father after hearing from several of his children in the courthouse. But he said he also had to take into account the testimony that was given by the star witness Cassie Ventura and the other woman who testified under the pseudonym Jane. We got a statement from Ventura's attorney saying, quote, "While nothing can undo the trauma caused by Combs, the sentence imposed today recognizes the impact of the serious offenses that he committed." Combs also addressed the court ahead of his sentencing, and he begged the judge to grant him mercy, saying that his actions were, quote, "disgusting, shameful, and sick." The judge acknowledged that Combs would be in a dark place now, but encouraged him to lean on the people that he loves and allow them to lift him up, just like he has lifted others up. In New York, I'm Lee Waldman.
Now, Diddy did not speak tonight, as well as his defense team, but the lawyer, Gloria Allred, for the victims did speak after the sentencing. We will play this for you now here on WCNC Plus. Keep in mind that she is pretty much surrounded by plenty of microphones. But this is her, Gloria Allred, here on WCNC Plus.
Against him from our clients who allege that he sexually assaulted them. And also I represent a number of victims or alleged victims who spoke to law enforcement, the prosecutors, but the court did not allow to testify, probably because of judicial economy, because the trial would have been very long. I don't know. 148 months is what the sentence was. I think the judge was very thoughtful. He didn't do the 11 years that the prosecutor wanted, and nor did he do the 14 months that the defense wanted. So Mr. Combs will be in prison for a while. He basically had a lot of good things to say, the judge did, about Mr. Combs and his contribution to the community over many years and to racial justice. But on the other hand, he has to pay the price for what he did. He could have had 10 years for each of the 2 counts of the violation of the Mann Act, which is going across state lines for the purpose of prostitution. So I think all in all, he gave the sentence that was recommended by the probation office. And so that's somewhere in between what the prosecution wanted and what the defense wanted. So it's finally over, except that there will be appeal, of course, by Mr. Combs, a very large legal team, and so we'll see what happens on appeal. Yeah, the argument was by the defense that that really this and so that's free speech. But the judge did not agree to that argument. It wasn't about filming. He said you can't launder an illegal act into a constitutional right, because that would otherwise be a very narrow interpretation of the Mann Act. So it was about committing a crime, because he pointed out that Mr. Combs had in fact participated and sometimes had sexual interaction with Jane and also with Cassie. So it wasn't just about watching, he actually participated in it. So I think he's got a good argument, and I don't think that the defense has a good argument on appeal. So he could have gotten 20 years, 10 years consecutively for each count, and now he has 148 months for a sentence. Many of my clients were very concerned that he might walk free by the end of this year, time served, and then a couple more months. And they were very much afraid that he would retaliate against them. And so I think that they will be happy that he will be at least in prison for a number of years. I think they'll feel comforted on that. So thank you. Okay, all right.
And that was the lawyer Gloria Allred for the victims of Sean Puffy Diddy Combs after he was sentenced to 4 years in prison. We're going to take a break here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Back in 2. Welcome back to Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. It's 7:10 on a Friday night. We are well into 2 full days now of the government shutdown, looking at 2 days, 19 hours, coming up on 3 days, and it will be through the weekend as both sides could not reach a deal today after several attempts to vote on at least a short-term funding bill so that the government can reopen. The latest now from NBC News on WCNC Plus.
On day 3 of the government shutdown, for the 4th time, Senate votes to open it failed.
3/5 of the Senate duly chosen and sworn not having voted in the affirmative
With no talks scheduled and each side fully entrenched, Republicans standing firm with the House-passed spending bill.
I don't know how many times they're going to give them a chance to vote no, and hopefully over the weekend they'll have a chance to think about it.
And Democrats vowing to keep up the fight for health care.
If we don't act now, then at least 22 million people will see their health care premiums double on average. But for many people, it's even worse than that.
President Trump threatening to fire already furloughed federal employees and downsize what he calls Democratic agencies.
The Office of Management and Budget is in constant communication and contact right now with our cabinet secretaries and agencies across the board to identify, unfortunately, where layoffs have to be made and where cuts have to happen.
Now the impact of this shutdown beginning to be felt across the country, from tourists disappointed at a war memorial in Maryland.
Packed a little picnic lunch. And I thought about it being closed, but I thought it would just be like the Welcome Center.
To a Native American tribe in Nevada, which gets money from federal grants and contracts, but furloughed 25 workers to keep public services running.
You know, maybe we can go for another 5 days, but what does that mean if this thing lasts for a month? Yeah. And now it's like we have to grip our resources even tighter if this goes even 2 weeks.
There are no votes scheduled this weekend. The Senate will be back on Monday, but the House maybe not until Tuesday, and maybe they will be out even longer than that, which means it is very likely that this shutdown will extend to more than a week. Ryan Nobles, NBC News, Washington.
And one of the agencies affected in talking about how it will move forward, of course, without government funding is NOAA. And our Brad Panovich, as well as Tim Buckley at WFMY in Greensboro, had this conversation previously. Get you caught up here on what that's going to do to the organization NOAA in case the government shutdown lasts a lot longer. Here is that previously recorded interview now on WCNC Plus.
You know, on the topic of hurricane season, you know, Tim, we've got this government shutdown, and going into the season, we were worried about the lack of funding for the NOAA, National Weather Service, FEMA, and now with the government shutdown, there's a possibility this could have some impacts as well. And we're going to dive into that a little bit this evening to see if there are going to be impacts. Ivan Rodriguez from CNN dove into this day and got to the bottom to see how FEMA and NOAA would be impacted by this current government shutdown.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the Federal Emergency Management Agency will remain open because they're deemed essential to the protection of lives and property, but employees will still feel the impact.
They're doing the work without pay, without an understanding of when the shutdown is going to end. Will they get that back pay eventually?
Chris Vigaski with WiscoNet says he hopes the shutdown is resolved quickly so it doesn't severely impact the livelihoods of employees. The Weather Forecasting Agency has less than 4,000 employees for the first time in decades. It lost more than 560 people to layoffs, early retirement incentives, and other programs aimed at shrinking the size of the federal government. The agency has enough staff to accurately predict tropical storms and hurricanes, says a NOAA official who spoke to CNN on the condition of anonymity for fear of retribution.
The question, of course, is for how long and what other supporting capabilities, if you will, might be compromised, especially with so many people being furloughed right now.
With some local NWS offices short-staffed, former NOAA Administrator Richard Spinrad worries about weather events happening simultaneously across the country.
What happens if we have another hurricane outbreak and some wildfires in the west, severe drought in the Midwest? All of a sudden, you're stretching that workforce so very thin with regard to providing those services across the country and for all of these different environmental hazards.
Oh, Ivan Rodriguez joins us right now. Ivan, thank you so much for joining us. You know, it just seems like NOAA, and especially the Weather Service, has had to deal with short staffing. They've had to deal with funding cuts, layoffs, fork in the road, resignations. What did you find is the biggest concern that they have with the government shutdown?
Well, when I spoke with the NOAA administrator, he was telling me how he had spoken with former colleagues, and overall that they're just very concerned in terms of how long this government shutdown is going to last. Like a lot of federal workers, the main concern is, especially for NOAA and FEMA workers, that they're still working, but they're working without pay, and for a short amount of time that is doable for a lot of families. But the longer this goes on, they're really concerned for their own livelihoods in the end. And again, the NOAA administrator was mentioning how they're all meteorologists who want to get the forecasts as best as possible, and they're moving pieces across the board, really moving meteorologists across the country to those offices that needed them the most to try and fill those staffing gaps. But again, that can only go on for so long. And I thought it was really interesting, and the way he put it into perspective was, well, what happens when you do get, all of different kinds of severe weather or different kinds of, as he mentioned, hazards across the country for an agency that's already spread pretty thin.
And Ivan, how does this affect FEMA, and what would happen to the government's flood insurance in this case?
Well, in terms of FEMA, it's interesting because FEMA depends on the help from other federal agencies to respond to disasters. So furloughs elsewhere could throw a wrench into the whole operation, even if FEMA itself stays mostly intact. Now, inside FEMA, only disaster-related work would likely continue. The National Flood Insurance Program, that lapsed on September 30th. So FEMA won't issue any new policies, but they'll still offer payouts for valid claims with their available funds.
Yeah, well, that's just a lot of impacts there. Thank you so much, Ivan, for diving into this. This is definitely an important issue that we're going to be paying attention to, especially here in Western North Carolina with the cleanup from Helene as well. So thank you again, Ivan.
Well, around the world earlier today, Hamas saying that it agreed to release all hostages and express willingness to negotiate through mediators on President Trump's plan for peace in the Middle East. We do have the latest from NBC News now from Tel Aviv here on WCNC+.
Well, on its face, it does look like a bombshell announcement from Hamas, the terror group that started the latest round of fighting when it attacked Israel back on October 7th, 2023. They said that they would release all of the remaining hostages, of whom 20 are thought to be alive in the Gaza Strip, and that they would agree to relinquish power, it sounds like, to an independent body of Palestinian, basically technocrats, the language used in their statement, to govern the Gaza Strip. Now, as important as what Hamas has said they will agree to as part of Donald Trump's 20-point plan, it also is important what they didn't mention, or what they said would be negotiated. They mentioned that Israel would be withdrawing from the Gaza Strip, but they didn't mention anything about the timeline for when that would be done, essentially leaving all of that open to further negotiations. So all of this still open to interpretation and negotiation as part of that 20-point plan. Hamas's statement tonight leaves even more open to negotiation and interpretation, and essentially leaves the door open to further discussions. Whether or not those further discussions will meet with satisfaction by the Israelis or by the United States or by the rest of the international community, all of the other stakeholders, including Muslim and Arab countries and the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. There's a lot of moving parts here. All of that is yet to be seen. But the fact is that Hamas did say that they would agree to release those remaining hostages, alive and dead. And for that, we can expect that there's going to be at least some cheer in the Gaza Strip and here in Israel until we hear about further stipulations and negotiations that could derail, once again, what looks like a pretty promising agreement. Matt Bradley, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
And we'll be right back as you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC+. Stay with us. Welcome back to Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Thanks for staying with us here on this third day of October, a Friday night, and this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, of course. This year marking a decade of pink badges at the Iredell County Sheriff's Office. What began under the Sheriff Darren Campbell's leadership has grown into a meaningful tradition, and our Jesse Pierre spoke to their team to the project they do every October for breast cancer awareness. This is that interview played in its entirety here on WCNC Plus.
Title.
Okay, Caitlin, K-A-T-E-L-Y-N-N, Smith, S-M-I-T-H, Deputy Sheriff with Iredell County Sheriff's Office.
Talk a little bit about, obviously I'm here, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month here in October. I know it's your pink badge. Talk a little bit more about the significance of that and how that all came about.
Okay, the pink badges started 10 years ago under Sheriff Campbell. He allowed anyone with badges within the Iredell County Sheriff's Office to be able to purchase the pink badge with their own money and
I'm going to sit in the chair, sorry, so you're not looking up at me.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Do I need to start over?
You can just start, just start anew if you don't mind.
Okay.
You're good. You can look at me.
So the pink badges started 10 years ago under Sheriff Campbell. It allowed anybody with badges that work within the Iredell County Sheriff's Office to purchase a pink badge and honor, support, or to remember those that have fought breast cancer. With a purchase of the pink badge, a percentage goes to help awareness with the Susan B. Komen research. With my purchase this year, I bought it in remembrance of my grandfather in honor of my grandfather who had breast cancer, and he did fight the good fight, and he's still with us. And then my aunt who did fight breast cancer twice. Unfortunately, the second round in 2017, she passed away.
And obviously you're purchasing them, but obviously that proceeds goes to, what did you say again, Susan?
It goes to Susan B. Coleman's research for breast cancer.
And what inspired, you said this has been going on for 10 years, what inspired it to just, do you know what inspired it to?
You know, specifically, I do not know what inspired Sheriff Campbell to start it. Sure. I do know that my favorite thing about Iredell County Sheriff's Office is the involvement we have with the community to protect, to teach, and to raise awareness. So it was a great way for the community to come together, support those that have fought or are still fighting breast cancer, and it just helps to show that the Iredell County Sheriff's Office is here to support them.
What does that really mean to you? Obviously you spoke a little bit about the background in your family, the history of this awful disease.
Yes, so what it means to me, and I have a long history of breast cancer awareness. I worked in research for a while within breast cancer research. I also used to help with fundraisers for women that could not afford breast mammograms. So I think just dealing with family members that have had it and seeing their struggles. I also have a really close friend who I used to work with that had to have the double mastectomy and hysterectomy, and it changed her world. And she's just such a beautiful person now that she has fought that fight and is still with us. So seeing her struggles day by day, losing my aunt, and then just knowing that it doesn't just affect women, it also affects men because of my grandfather. It means a lot to me to help support those.
What have you seen in the participation amongst you all with the pink badges?
Oh, it's a lot of fun just to see, because we have to wear just our regular badge all year round, but in October we get to wear the pink one, so it's a lot of fun to see us together with the pink badges, to hear other people's stories on how the breast cancer or other cancers have affected their family and their lives altogether.
Obviously you cross paths with other agencies and law enforcement. Have they noticed a pink badge and ever said anything?
I do believe that another agency real close to us also does some kind of support. I know that we may be doing patches in the future, so it is a lot of kind of camaraderie, but also competition on who is supporting what and how we were supporting them. So yeah.
I mean, it's a really cool thing. Besides October, I would say wear the pink badge year round. But I had a couple other questions that were sent to me, so I apologize. Might have been what I already hit on. But, is there anything else you'd like to share, obviously, about, breast cancer awareness? And, you already kind of mentioned some of the things you've done and continue to do, and how people can participate or contribute in this community.
Yes, definitely. While we're in this month of breast cancer awareness in October, a couple important things that the community should know is early detection is key to breast cancer. So making sure that you're doing self-breast exams and that you're getting your annual mammogram is very important. My aunt, when she was first diagnosed, was 44. So, you're not looking at people over the age of 50 anymore. I've had classmates that were diagnosed in their late 20s and early 30s. So everyone should be doing self-breast exams, going to get their mammograms whenever it's appropriate. And if it's not affordable, there are ways to make it affordable through different organizations.
And you've been in the Sheriff's Department for how long now?
I'll be here a year in November.
Okay.
And prior to that, I was in medical for 10 years. So that's how I've kind of gotten my, yes.
And I was going to say, what have you noticed? Obviously, I kind of already asked this question before, but what have you noticed in terms of participation amongst your fellow officers with the pink badge?
So again, it's only been a year. However, I do know that everyone gets on as soon as they hear about the pink badges. Everyone's willing to support it. Again, like I said, they've had somebody they've known that has been affected by cancer. So I know several of us have already purchased ours for this year, and there's several more that can't wait till next year to go ahead and get their pink badges.
Are there any other events, because you kind of mentioned it, any other events that you personally participate in during this month? You kind of hit on that a little bit, or the Sheriff's Office in general, for raising awareness or raising funds, obviously?
I don't know that one. For me personally, as far as raising awareness, in the past we have done fundraisers for, again, women that could not afford mammograms through Idaho Memorial Hospital. And then I was in research with Piedmont Healthcare for a while, and we did biospecimen studies on how to detect breast cancer with lab work.
And your family knows of the pink badge, right?
My family what?
Knows about the pink badge.
They know, well, after yesterday, the whole family knows about the pink badge. Yeah, so we just started wearing them yesterday as well.
And what did that mean to them to see that?
I've gotten so many messages from family and friends that are telling me how proud they are of me and how sweet, my memory to my aunt and then in honor of my grandpa meant to them.
Is there anything else you'd like to?
And we appreciate Iredell County Sheriff's Office for their efforts on such an important campaign. Right now it's 7:30. Artificial intelligence reshaping Hollywood in ways we never imagined. A virtual actress named Tilly Norwood is now sparking heated debate in the entertainment industry, raising a lot of questions. Joining us now from LA is Maribel Gonzalez to discuss this groundbreaking controversy. Good evening, Maribel.
Good evening, Jane. Yeah, Tilly is not the first AI character, but she certainly won't be the last. This creation, however, is the latest in the film industry's ongoing debate over a technology that many creatives fear is stealing their work and could one day replace them.
Let's get to know each other, and thanks for watching.
Meet Tilly Norwood. She looks like a woman, except she's an artificial intelligence-generated actress. Seth Schachner from Strat America's, a Los Angeles-based consultancy in media and tech, says he's seeing advancement.
She looks incredibly real, and these technologies are getting better and better.
Tilly is drawing criticism from many in Hollywood, including actor Emily Blunt.
That's an AI.
Yes, that is a...
Good Lord. We're screwed.
Aline van der Velden, the founder of AI production studio Particle 6, responded to the backlash, saying in part her creation Tilly is not a replacement for a human being, but a creative work, a piece of art.
AI has been, an increasing, if quiet, part of the ecosystem out here in LA that, serves pretty productive needs. It helps with cost, it helps the user experience.
But the Screen Actors Guild president says Tilly is a mashup of their actors' talent.
It is a synthetic creation garnered from ill-gotten data. the data that comes from our performers.
The use of AI in Hollywood played a key role in the 2023 writers and actors strikes, which ended with agreements to regulate its use by studios and streaming services.
If it's used by any of our signatory producers or companies, they have to notify us, and they have to bargain with us, and they have to compensate with us.
Well, Tilly's creator adds that Tilly represents experimentation and not substitution, and she hopes we can welcome AI as part of the, quote, wider artistic family. Jane?
And Maribel, so how have these media companies responded to the AI companies?
Jane, they're already taking major steps. Disney and Universal sued Midjourney in June, accusing the photo and video generator of illegally training its AI on their materials and then spitting out unauthorized recreations of beloved characters like Bart Simpson and Wall-E. Now, Warner Brothers filed a similar lawsuit against Midjourney earlier this month.
Okay, getting very sophisticated out there in the way of entertainment and what we see on our screens these days. Maribel Gonzalez, thanks tonight. All right, here in Live Impact Studio, you are watching Live Impact News. We will be right back. Stay with us. Back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, where we bring you the latest local news when available, live feeds when they're available as well, and important discussions. Today, leaders around Charlotte holding a visible press conference after Cats put in some safety measures following the stabbing death of Irina Zrutska on Charlotte's light rail several weeks ago. That interview now, or actually I should say the press conference now, for you here in its entirety, played for you now on WCNC Plus.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. Loud, hot. The mayor, Mayor Knox, city manager, and Brent will be up to give some prepared remarks, and then we will do a Q&A afterwards for a few minutes. So if you have any questions, we will do it at the end, and then unless there's any issues, we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I want to recognize the members of the Charlotte City Council as well as the members of the MTC that are here today. So raise your hand if you're that, and I know that I have some council members. Here we are, Mr. Graham and Mr. Peacock, and as well anyone else from the MTC. I have my vice chair working with us today as well. So, before we talk about the work we're doing on transit, I have to say something from my heart. Many of you know that I have been in this situation before, and having to have this loss of my arena, it's been a terrible time for all of us. We know the violence was on our like rail, but we also know that our city is mourning this loss and will likely never forget it. No one in Charlotte should feel unsafe about getting to work, school, or home to their family. Safety has been and will continue to be our top priority. And we have been working with the White House, our federal officers and assistants, and all of this that we want to do. We definitely want to be sure that we are taking the right steps forward. We've expanded the jurisdiction of our transit security provider. Professional Police Services, PSS known to most of us, so that they can patrol more of our transit facilities and adjacent areas. The Charlotte Transit Center, Rail Trail, among others, are all now included. CATS has been able to add additional patrol units, including bike teams and urban terrain vehicles. These are not things that we're promised. These are the things that we are doing. These steps are in motion. Our city departments, CATS leadership, and federal and state partners are sitting at the same table, sharing information and coordinating and collaborating each step of the way. Safety is taken care if all of us work together. And I want to be clear that I hear often from our neighbors, our residents, the people that live in this great city who just want to feel safe. I live in the city. I've lived in the city since I was in college. And I understand what it means to be safe. I take this personally. I want my grandchildren to grow up and be a part of this city. And that means that we have to change and make things possible for them and the next generation and the next generation after that. We owe that not just to those of us that are here today, but we owe this to Irena's family and to every person that ever thought about we should ride the bus or the train for whatever reason. I'm committed to this work, and we won't stop until our system is as safe as it can possibly be. Part of making sure this system is safe is making sure that everyone who uses the system needs to pay their fair share. Everyone in this region is being asked to support the transit system with the 1 cent mobility referendum on November the 4th. If our community invests in our transit system, then our riders must pay fares. The MTC members have spoken at length regarding the need to increase fare enforcement and reduce fare invasion. I and the MTC are committed to this work. I plan to work with members of the MTC to introduce a resolution at our next meeting, ensuring that we are actually going to have fare evasion and working towards making sure everyone pays fair share of our transit system. It won't be easy. We'll need to make some investments, but at the same time, we have to approach this process and this plan for fare evasion, because fare evasion is often a symptom of different challenges. We can't ignore that, so we will have to work out how to best do it. I want to say, in outreach and education and policies that meet people where they are, we believe that we can have a system that is safe. Now, I don't do this alone. Many of you have been with us on the ride since we've been talking about how do we maintain having transportation initiatives for this great city. And I want to say to you that I am really proud that we've been able to address these issues candidly and openly. And I want you to do that because I know that behind me is the co-chair of the MTC, Davidson Mayor Rusty Knox. I would like to welcome him to the podium to address what the work we've been doing as MTC leaders.
Thanks,
Rusty.
Good morning. I'm Rusty Knox. I'm the Mayor of Davidson. I also serve as Vice Chair of the MTC. And I want to tell you, public transportation is safe in Mecklenburg County. I am from Davidson. I'm one of those rare people that was born and raised in Davidson. My wife is from Charlotte. We come to Charlotte often. We are on the Blue Line regularly. I take the express bus to Charlotte for meetings. I've never felt unsafe. The tragic death of Rena Zariska was something that was spontaneous and probably unpreventable. That's the sad part about it. Can we learn from that? Yes. Are additional measures being taken to ensure that the public feels they're in a more safe environment? Absolutely. But I just want everybody to know that the MTC is going to do everything in our power with the resources that we are providing to both PPS and to CMPD to ensure that safety is priority one for anyone that chooses to use public transportation, but also anyone that has to navigate the city. So just be assured that as long as we are a structured organization in MTC, we will do all that we can, and that message will carry through if the 1 cent sales tax passes in November and the new transit authority is created. Safety has to be paramount. It has to be the most important thing besides just making sure that the trains run on a 10-minute cycle and the buses run on a 15-minute cycle. Those are just givens. I think with the new initiatives that you're going to see, we're going to be in a better place. But I will promise you, the one thing that Mayor Lyles alluded to was fare evasion. That's one thing that we've got to solve, and I think taking those measures will be first and foremost at our next MTC meeting coming up this month. So with that, I'm going to defer to City Manager Marcus Jones at this time. Again, thank you for being here. Thank you for the interest, and know that you can reach out to myself and the other board members if you have any further questions. Thank you.
All right, they are getting ready to switch speakers, previously recorded from earlier this morning, the press conference on the latest measures for cat safety on our light rail system. Here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus at 7:45, it's time for us to take a quick 2-minute break. We'll be right back, and we'll continue with this earlier recorded press conference. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. As you're watching here at 7:48 on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, a press conference held between CATS and city leaders in Charlotte talking about some additional safety measures for CATS riders after several weeks after Irina Zarutska's death on a light rail. We'll continue with this recording here on WCNC Plus.
So thank you, Mayor and Mayor. I'm Marcus Jones, City Manager of Charlotte, and I wanted to start off by just saying how important public safety is to our city. It's what we do. The City Council has spent the better part of the last year and a half having discussions around public safety, and what's very clear is that while there are many things that we can do, there's more that has to be done. We have multiple city departments and multiple agencies that play a role in safety. But in terms of the city of Charlotte, about 40% of our general fund budget is solely for police. So it's 40% of our general fund budget supports police. When you add fire to it, it's about 60% of our general fund budget. Over the past several years, we have made tremendous investments in public safety, and we would go back to even 2019. What I do is I have opportunities with our Public Safety Pay Plan Committee, which is made up of police and fire, and we talk about what's important for attracting great people in public safety, as well as retaining them. So since 2019, we have increased the starting salary for police by 34% and the top out salary by 41%. What we had to do is undo a bunch of things that happened during the Great Recession, where it took longer for police officers and firefighters to top out. So we were able to have, through different policies and initiatives, have police officers top out earlier, which is very significant for CMPD. But we also did things around second and third shift where we provided more funding. We added more recruit classes, and we're seeing retention trend in the right direction, and we're seeing vacancies trend in the right direction also. But also we've taken some steps to make sure that those jobs and positions that police officers were handling, for instance, like a captain who is overseeing the 911 center, how could we change those to civilians? And we were able to take vacant positions, change those to civilian positions so that we can have more officers patrolling the streets. You may have seen the 16 civilian crash investigators that we have, again, freeing up hours for police officers to patrol. The same thing with 40 sworn vacant positions that we've converted into civilian positions. We will continue to work with our partners. During the past several months, we worked with community leaders, we worked with the business community, with a focus on a comprehensive plan as it relates to public safety. More will come in the next week or two, but I want you to know that we've focused on various areas in our city, starting with the uptown, but not limited to the uptown. We have additional resources in our central division. We have targeted patrols, and we have targeted response for intervention and outreach. We're working more to make sure that we can keep our community safe. Now, Brent is going to talk about transit and some of the safety measures there, but I want to assure you that we're not limiting it just to transit. How can we make sure that our entire community feels safe and we have the resources to make sure that we can back that up? So I'll turn it over to Brent.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Brent Cagle, Interim CEO of CATS. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today. I'll keep my comments brief so that we can move over to questions. I think today, this is what we're talking about, visual presence. You see PPS officers here. You also see the equipment behind me that they are deploying. It really is a visual way to show our commitment to safety and security throughout transit. The partnership with PSS is growing and evolving as we work together to ensure the safety of our operators, our customers, and as we work to reduce or eliminate fare evasion throughout the system. All of these are top priorities, and CATS with PPS and in partnership with CMPD, we're ready to implement and execute on these plans. PPS continues to increase staffing with personnel now at approximately 200 staff hired and available, including over 40 armed personnel that are part of the PPS contract. All of these personnel are backed up and supported by 24 FTE or 966 hours per week of off-duty Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department officers. I think it's also important to note that all of the personnel receive extensive training, including unarmed personnel, before they go out to serve the community and transit. And all of the unarmed personnel are fully supported by armed personnel with PPS and by CMPD. Adding the bike unit and UTVs really makes PPS and CATS more mobile and capable to protect our system going forward.
All right, we will open it up to questions. If you could tell us who you are, what outlet you're with, and we'll try to get through as many of these as we can before the pilot driver turns back on.
Andy Weber with Queen City News.
And who you're directing the question to?
Sure, Mr. Cagle. There was talk in the auditor's report there being around 40 some odd armed officers. Is that enough, you believe, to keep the system safe and to increase perception of safety?
Yes, so the auditor did note in his report one element of the contract, armed security. I think it's important to remember that one element of the contract doesn't represent the position entirely on how to provide proper security throughout the system. We know visible presence is important, and so what we have is a more than 100% increase in staffing across certified law enforcement, armed security, as well as unarmed security, all working together to protect the system. And all of that is backed up in conjunction with CMPD and our partnerships with law enforcement. And so, yes, we do believe that this is a solid strategy. The other thing I'll say, and others have talked about this, as we think about staffing, we also know we need more staffing. And so we're committed to growing that contract as we move forward. But when we entered into the agreement, the partnership with PPS, it was about creating that right mix to create better visible presence and a stronger security position across the entire system.
Mayor Miles Hunter Signs here with Channel 9. I have a question for you in regards to the Fraternal Order of Police have requested that the National Guard now come to Charlotte after all of this and recent violent crime. Do you believe the National Guard should come to Charlotte?
I believe in Charlotte first and foremost, Hunter. I believe that we have the ability in this community, the number of people that are engaged now to make this a safer city is from every part of our community. It's from the business community, it's from our educational works and all of that. So what I believe is that given the time that we have to work with the White House and the other federal offices, that we will not need the Guard to come to Charlotte.
Mr. Cagle, David Hodges, WBTV. To the point that the auditor was making about the amount of armed security professionals and train cabs, could we see an armed security officer on every single CATS light rail cab moving forward after this?
Yeah, as I've said before, we don't believe that that is feasible. We also don't believe it creates a force that can stay mobile to respond throughout the system. If there are significant numbers of security on every vehicle, if those trains need to be stopped for some reason, that means those security are stationary with that train. And so again, it's not about are there personnel on every vehicle every day, all day long. It's are there personnel visibly present throughout the entire system, always throughout the day.
Can I also ask how that intersects with the bus system? Because just to remind everyone, Carlos Brown Jr. got to the light rail by riding the bus. He entered the stop closest to the roof above. There are assaults our viewers have seen on buses frequently. How is CATS going to address safety issues on buses where some of these people are often entering the light rail system?
Yeah, so buses are the backbone of every transit system, and just like light rail, buses need to be safe. Passengers need to feel safe when they're riding buses, and so again, these measures aren't just about the blue line or the rail, it's about buses as well. And again, I'll reiterate, everyone needs to have a ticket. Fare evasion, we will be focusing on reducing or eliminating fare evasion as we move forward, and that is across the entire system, whether it's buses, rail, all of our modes.
Marcus, Hunter again with Channel 9. I have two quick questions for you. We talked about hiring off-duty police officers to help in this effort. What percentage of those slots are being filled or are filled?
So I believe that we have about 800 hours of off-duty police officers. I love the way you framed it, because that means we're not taking anybody that's actively patrolling off the street for this purpose. And my understanding is that all of those slots have been subscribed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Respectfully, it's not what I have heard from people internal in the department, but I will say they are not being paid, I've learned, through their city paycheck, which means their overtime can't strategically be used towards their pension. They're instead getting paid through power detail. They're getting paid $80 an hour, so I hear. Why not make that incentive to pay them through their city paycheck for this off-duty work?
So I'll start off with the process. So with off-duty, it's no different. The CATS is no different than any other entity. So there's an off-duty rate, and they are being paid through CATS funds and not through the city's general fund, just like an off-duty for another entity.
But there are other.
Putting a pause in that previously recorded press conference from this morning with CATS and city leaders in Charlotte talking about these extra safety measures along our CATS light rails. We will take a break here, top of the hour on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here to Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, 8:03 Friday night. Hope yours is off to a good start here. We have one more hour of streaming news and previously recorded press conference from this morning, a presser between CATS officials and Charlotte city leaders talking about the safety measures now adding to the light rail system here on CNC Plus. We'll play this for you again and pick up where things were left off. We have about 15 more minutes on it on WCNC Plus.
Well, I'm not sure how this is structured with this that's different than what else we do. But Brandon, if you could tell them how this is structured.
If not to incentivize to fill more off-duty officers on there, I think the biggest question here is then, is the city trying to save money over keeping the community safe?
No, not at all. Again, my understanding is that this has been subscribed to, maybe even oversubscribed, but let's just say that I've not heard up to this point that there has been an issue with the off-duty officers filling the slots that CATS has made available.
Brent Cagle, Brett Jensen, WBT Radio. In terms of making sure that everyone has a ticket to get on the light rail or whatever, the people that you're going to have there checking the tickets on the light rail itself, are they going to be women? Are they going to be men? Are they going to be able to defend themselves to prevent someone getting on who really wants to get on, like DeCarlos Brown? How will that happen? Because if there's someone that can't handle themselves, we'll be back here in 2 years from now talking about how someone was assaulted trying to prevent someone from getting on while trying to check tickets.
So they will all be trained security. That's where we are now. We will be looking at, and we've said this publicly, many transit agencies have transitioned fare inspection or ticket checkers over to non-security, and we do intend to evaluate that and possibly execute that. They are then trained for how to de-escalate and how to handle those situations, but they are not there to provide a security function. They are there to be supported by security as they're conducting their activities.
Right, so how would they prevent someone from actually getting on if they wanted to get on?
They're not there to prevent someone from getting on. They're there to identify someone who hasn't paid, and if that person refuses, security is there to remove them from the system.
Are you guys thinking about adding turnstiles to the CATS Light Rail?
That has come up frequently for the Blue Line. The Blue Line was constructed originally as an open system versus a closed system. Closed systems have turnstiles, open systems do not. It is not something that we have looked at, but certainly it's something that we'll continue to have conversations about with the MTC or ultimately the Transit Authority if this referendum passes on November 4th.
Can we pose the same question to Mayor Lyles and Mayor Knox, since y'all will be dealing with a lot of the policy? Is considering turnstiles, barriers to limit physical access something that y'all would consider for limiting variation?
Well, I think the issue also is providing safety for everyone that gets on is most important, but the one thing to look at when we're looking at the Blue Line, for example, is the frequency at which it runs. We're roughly on an 8 to 10 minute cycle right now on the Blue Line. The turnstiles potentially will slow that system down. If it slows it down in the event and because of safety, I think that's a good thing. But you know, it's a convenience thing too for a lot of people to know that I can catch the Blue Line every 10 minutes and I can get to and from my job or to and from a doctor's appointment or whatever. Now with turnstiles, if it ends up being 15 minutes or something, you got to weigh that option, and I think safety will be first and foremost, regardless.
Yeah, with all due respect, though, Mayor Knox, they use turnstiles in New York City. They use turnstiles everywhere for the subways, be it Boston, be it D.C., be it Chicago.
Right.
Why not here? If
Well,
it's okay for them, why not us?
It may be all right for us. I think that's something that we now have to look at. I think for me, and I've been riding public transit since I got elected in 2017, and I've always felt safe. And I think most of us that use public transit are of the same mindset. We've always felt safe until August 22nd. And if this is the catalyst for making a more safe environment for everyone that chooses or has to ride public transit, I think that's a great thing. But, you know, for me, I was on the Blue Line this weekend. I didn't feel unsafe. I was on the Blue Line 2 weeks before Irina Zaruska passed away. I didn't feel unsafe. So I think that's the most important thing is looking at what public transit is in Mecklenburg County and how historically it has been a safe method to get around our county.
One thing, let me follow up on this too. So you make a good point. The subways that you referred to are closed systems. Atlanta, New York, Boston. We don't have a subway. We have a light rail system, and the norm for light rail systems is just like ours. They're constructed as open system. There are pros and cons to that, but what I would say is when you have an open system like we have, like we chose to have, it does not mean that you can't enforce fares. It means that you enforce fares differently, and that's what we're talking about. The other thing I'll say is all of those closed systems that you talked about all deal with fare evasion. New York City, the MTA just recently did a study saying that they lose between $700 million and $1 billion a year in fare evasion. So those closed systems, they are built that way, and they do have those turnstiles. Open systems are by design not built that way. Now, some of the things that open systems bring is that hop-on, hop-off nature of the Blue Line. It's also integrated into the community. We see that, whether it's in South End, Uptown, NoDa, we see how it's part of the community. It's part of the fabric of what makes these all of our neighborhoods great. The last thing I'll say is, again, and I'll reiterate, with an open system, there are absolutely ways, and we've talked about these, how we increase our presence and reduce to eliminate fare evasion. It's everything from validators to personnel, boots on the ground, people, and those are all of the things. I am only aware of one system in the U.S. that has actually tried to convert an open system to a closed system. It's St. Louis. And again, they have just done that, and so we'll continue looking at it. But I want to stress that open systems are by design. They are very different than subways. I know we think about trains are trains, but subways, light rails, streetcars, all of those are very different, and they have different operating characteristics. And our Blue Line is very similar to other light rail systems across the country.
We know that what happened on the Blue Line.
I think that there's a young lady that's raised her hand right there.
Stephanie has a question would like to use. Mr. Cagle, can you explain how the UTVs and bikes will improve safety across the rail? Will these officers?
So again, the PSS contract has a mix. So the officers are a mix of certified law enforcement, armed and unarmed. All of those officers are deployed throughout the system. What this does, especially in areas like Uptown and South End, where it is very difficult to reach some of these platforms by vehicle, this extends their reach, and it also gives them the ability to respond much more quickly. And the last thing I'll say about the UTVs and the bikes, partnered with the mutual aid agreement that was unanimously approved by City Council just 2 weeks ago. Together with that, it gives them the ability to extend their security or enforcement activities along the rail trail in areas that are proximate to our facilities.
Brent, Eric Spanberg with the Business Journal. I'm curious if there's been a lot of talk about a transit-specific police force. If the referendum passes, how long would it take to stand that up? How much would it cost? And what size force would it be? I know all the answers, but do you have any idea?
Those are all excellent questions, Eric. At this point, I can't answer that. It would be part of, if this passes on November 4th, part of that kind of conversation associated with the transition. There are many questions about how CATS as a city department would then transition to become part of a transit authority or an independent transit authority. I think that all of the questions you asked are part of that transition plan.
One thing I heard from several riders is that they want to have more possibilities to alert security and so forth if they are inside a streetcar and an incident happens. So whether it's through education or highlighting more of the possibilities of buttons and so forth, what is there now, and then what are you looking into to enhance that? And also, I know obviously you have surveillance camera on each of the cars, but being able to just access someone when you need help.
Yeah, so a couple things. We have over 4,500 cameras throughout our system. We have a lot of cameras. We are also looking at where those cameras need to be upgraded and where we have gaps and adding cameras. So we have the technology there when it comes to cameras for the passengers to let us know. They have a lot of options. Specific to light rail, there's a call button on every train that goes directly to the operator, the train operator. That opens the channel for them to hear what's going on. Even if the passenger just hits the button but doesn't feel comfortable saying something, that opens the communications to the operator so that they can then have awareness of what's going on in the train car behind them and take appropriate action, notify CMPD, notify PPS, so that they can respond. The other thing I'll say, and we talk a lot about this, and I'm going to reiterate it, a lot of our riders, most of our riders use the CATS app to buy their tickets. The CATS app in the front page has report a problem function. Absolutely every rider, if they see something going on a platform, on a vehicle, they absolutely can and should use the report a problem function on the app. Again, that goes directly to dispatch so that they can understand, they can have two-way communications with that passenger, but that's not required. They can also then access the camera system to see what's going on and deploy staff accordingly. We are looking at how we increase the report a problem, the app, to make it even easier for passengers, but there are possibilities, and clearly 911 is always an option for everyone, whether they're in the community or using transit.
Mayor Lyles, would you be in favor of naming the light rail station after Rena Zarutska at East West Boulevard?
We're going to wrap this up. We appreciate you guys.
Could you answer that question, though?
What is the question?
Are you in favor? There's been a call to name the East West Boulevard station after Rena Zarutska. Would you be in favor of that, Mayor?
I am not able to speak to that, as you would say right now. I think that is a really important decision, and a decision that shouldn't be made by someone that's just stepping up like this today. We have a lot to do, and I hope that you understand that that's why we're standing here today, is to answer as many questions as possible, but also to think about what would be the best thing to help our city be who we can be. And so what I want to say is thank you all for coming to do this. I want to recognize Council Member, Chair of our Transportation Committee, Ed Driggs, came in a little bit later, and I just want to have him have the opportunity to have a conversation with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And I can tell you it was very disheartening for all of us on Charlotte City Council to get the news of the tragic death of Rena Zarutska. I do want to emphasize this happened in Charlotte, but this is not Charlotte. This is something that could have happened in a lot of places. It's a hideous crime, and like other hideous crimes, active shooters in schools and things like that, it stirs up emotions. It makes people afraid. Our job now is to allay those fears, and to provide a security presence that will help people to get past this terrible event and get back to where we were, which is riding on these systems and enjoying the advantages that we have from these systems. I will mention, in response to your question, sir, the Charlotte officers that are hired by CATS are working off the CMPD clock. This is not overtime pay, which they get when they fill in duties for CMPD that normally would be filled by other officers. They do that the same way they do when they provide security in neighborhoods like mine. And as such, that pay doesn't qualify, as the union suggested, for inclusion in their CMPD service compensation. So I think you've heard about all the steps that are being taken. I've involved myself personally in a lot of it. We've had a lot of engagement with the FTA and the auditor's office in the state. We are responding in a very timely fashion to their questions and suggestions. And I think if you look at the correspondence, you will see that we are partnering with them in every way we can to get past this and to address a situation that we knew existed before. And that is that crime has got people worried right now. Crime in Charlotte does, crime on the trains and buses does, and we recognize that regardless of what the data may say, that is a concern. We have to take the emotions of those people seriously, and we cannot live in a city in which people are afraid to go out and afraid to get on a bus and get on a train. So I think you've seen the actions we're taking. Understand, though, it's difficult. So let's not let the rhetoric minimize the fact keeping people completely safe everywhere is hard. And you don't know when something could happen like what did. So I hope people will be able to regain confidence and trust us to do everything we can in order to make the system safe and let them get back to enjoying their lives in Charlotte. Thank you.
And you've been watching this morning's press conference between CATS officials and city leaders in Charlotte with extra safety measures following Irina Zarutska's death on a light rail several weeks ago. We're going to take a 2-minute break here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Time right now is 8:21 here on a Friday night. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Jane Monreal. If you joined me earlier this week, you know that I'm on the stream here on the Plus from 9 to 11 in the morning, Monday to Friday. Tonight, I'm holding down the evening crew. But earlier this week, I talked to Dr. Linda Bell from the State Health Department in South Carolina because, unfortunately, they've announced now the state's 4th case of measles in the upstate. Our Anna King covered the story for us here on WCNC Charlotte, but earlier, Dr. Bell held a full briefing, virtually, of course. We're going to play this for you now here on WCNC Plus.
Measles virus is one of the most highly contagious viruses known, and so there is a high risk for continued rapid spread of the disease, especially in the upstate, among communities with low immunization rates. The measles vaccination coverage in our state has fallen below that which we consider to give us very good population immunity. So that puts us at increased risk for ongoing spread. And this means that there's an urgent need to increase vaccination coverage to prevent spread in South Carolina like we have seen in other states with long and ongoing large outbreaks. The measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine is really the most important tool for preventing measles infection and spread. The MMR vaccine is highly effective. In just one dose of the vaccine gives about 93% of those who are vaccinated lifelong immunity. And with the recommended 2-dose schedule, that brings the protection for lifelong immunity up to about 97%. We want people to know that the MMR vaccine is available in doctors' offices and clinics and pharmacies and also at our DPH public health departments. And many children may receive the vaccine at no cost. So we encourage everyone to review their immunization records with their healthcare providers. Please make sure that they're up to date on the recommended MMR vaccine and also all other recommended vaccinations. We want people to know that there are certain groups of people who cannot be vaccinated because they may have underlying health conditions or they're too young. So, for example, pregnant women, people who have a weakened immune system should not receive the MMR vaccine. So getting our coverage rate up in the state also protects those who cannot be vaccinated. And we are at this time just encouraging everyone to speak with their healthcare provider to evaluate their risks and benefits of the vaccine. So I want to thank everyone for joining to hear this information, helping us to get the word out. And at this time, I can take any questions.
All right, I appreciate see some of you already know the protocol, but if you do have a question, go ahead and raise your virtual hand. I'll call on you in the order in which it was raised. And for follow-up questions, I'll just ask that you ask this separately because I want to give everybody who has a question an opportunity to ask first. So Lauren, you're up first. Please go ahead with your question.
Hi, Dr. Bell. Can the public health department be more specific about what county or counties these cases have been identified in? I feel like that would be very useful for the public to know.
Well, we release the information at our public health region level, and the important thing to recognize is that this virus does not observe administrative borders, that the risk of transmission, regardless of what county you live in, is increased in an area where we have identified ongoing transmission. And so for that reason, we report cases at the public health region level, and we also want to preserve confidentiality by not giving out too much information.
All right, thank you. Next question, Christina, please go ahead.
Good morning. Who would you consider to be in a high-risk category for complications of the disease?
Yes, well, actually anyone can experience complications from the disease, but we do know that young children are at higher risk from complications, as are people who have a weakened immune system. Pregnant women can do poorly with complications of pregnancy, early delivery, and the risk of complications for the woman herself. We know that pneumonia is a serious complication. That's the leading cause of death in young children. And other complications for people to be aware of are inflammation of the brain or an encephalitis. And there can be long-term complications, a weakening of the immune system. And so we want particularly those who are at increased risk to know about this, but we also want everyone in the population to know that anyone can experience complications unpredictably, and that's the reason why we encourage everyone to get protected from unexpected exposure and unexpected complications.
Thank you for that question. I want to jump to the chat real quick. I see Jeffrey Collins has a question. He asks, excuse me, what's the current measles vaccination rate in South Carolina, and where does it need to be to feel confident about overall immunity?
Well, our vaccination rate varies, but I would say on average it is around the 90% coverage level. And because the measles virus is so highly transmissible, when the vaccination coverage level falls below about 95% in a population, the virus easily finds any susceptible people, any non-immune person in the population. And in fact, in populations with low vaccination coverage, one infected person with measles can spread the virus to a range of 8 to 20 other people. That's what we call the reproductive rate. And so the concern with what we're currently seeing with this sharp uptick in cases is that in a population with low vaccination coverage, each one of those cases could spread it to as many as 20 other people. And when we have around 90% coverage, when we need to get to at least 95% coverage, this is the greatest concern, that we're going to see ongoing transmission in this community if we don't get our vaccination coverage rate up more quickly.
Thank you for that question. Sydney, go ahead with your question.
Thank you. Is getting vaccinated now enough to prevent catching measles during an outbreak?
Yes, it is. And that's a great question, because even with close contacts, if we can get them vaccinated within about 72 hours of contact, then we can often prevent the disease in these close contacts. Another concern about this unrecognized transmission in the community, though, is that there may be cases popping up, and if we get more and more cases, it can be difficult to identify those cases quickly enough to reach people to get them vaccinated in time. And so again, this is why we want people to be prepared in advance and go ahead and get their vaccines now before additional spread occurs. So as I said earlier, check with your healthcare provider, find out if you're up to date. And if you're not, we strongly encourage taking action now, because we can avoid that pool of people who would be susceptible. About 90% of people who are exposed and who are not immune will develop infection.
Thank you for that. Lauren, go ahead.
How many contacts are being actively monitored right now?
So the most recent cases, the 5 most recent cases that we were notified just a little over a week ago, those are ongoing investigations to identify who might have been exposed in a school population. And so we understand that close contacts in a school there's a high risk in these congregate settings for transmission. And it also makes it difficult to identify all of the close contacts. So that's an ongoing investigation.
Sydney, do you have a follow-up?
I have a separate question, actually. When did the vaccine coverage that you talked about earlier for the state, when did that start to drop?
So we have been seeing a trend in declining vaccination coverage over the last several years. We are seeing an increase in exemptions for children who are in school, and that's one of the things that is driving the decline in overall vaccination coverage. But this is a trend that we've been monitoring for several years. It is a slow decline, but again, those percentage points where we lose coverage by just a few percentage points have huge implications for susceptible individuals in a population, because the vaccine is so effective and because the virus is so highly contagious. That is what can make the difference.
Tom, welcome. Go ahead with your question, sir.
Hi, so I think you mentioned this a minute ago, but is this outbreak associated with an institution like a school or a daycare or some other congregate setting?
We have identified transmission. We have identified cases that have attended a school, and so that's part of our investigation, is to identify if transmission is occurring in that setting. But we have an unknown source of a couple of the cases in the upstate, which indicates that we cannot at this time identify where transmission is primarily occurring.
Lauren, go ahead.
I think Tom basically answered my question. It was if the investigation, you mentioned it was focused in a school setting. Are we talking about one school or are we talking about multiple schools?
Well, we are interviewing the cases to identify their close contacts, and at this time we are investigating known cases in a school.
Sydney, go ahead with your question.
Okay. Beyond vaccination, is there anything healthy people can do to prevent catching the measles?
Well, the vaccine is the most effective because it's specific to protect against this virus. But other measures that can prevent the transmission of respiratory illnesses, gastrointestinal illnesses, actually can go a long way. They're just not specific. But we shouldn't discount the effectiveness of good hygiene, just frequently washing your hands, avoiding touching your eyes and mouth and whatnot, where respiratory viruses and other viruses and bacteria can be introduced. We encourage people to also stay home if they're sick to prevent exposing other people. So just being responsible community members to prevent transmission spread. And then just things that can keep us healthy generally, prevents people from having a weakened immune system, from having chronic diseases that put them at increased risk. So those are all factors that keep us healthy in general. But I do want to make the point that when people rely on other measures to protect against a specific virus, those are not as effective as using the vaccine that is designed to prompt your immune system to recognize the virus and protect you specifically against that. So other measures are more blanket coverage against the transmission of all diseases, but they're not specific to protection against measles.
John Marks, go ahead, sir.
Hi, I'm with the Herald. You mentioned the upstate region, which is a certain number of counties. For folks who live in counties that border that region, maybe they aren't in it, but they're very close. How would you describe what the concern level should be, if any, for folks just outside of that area?
Well, I would say at this time our concern level is for the entire state, because we continue to be at risk for importation for people who are traveling to areas where there is higher measles transmission. That can be international travel. That can be travel within the United States where we're seeing pockets of outbreaks. And at this time, it could be anyone who travels from one region to another region. So we just want people to recognize how highly transmissible this virus is, and that it doesn't matter what region you live in. We are seeing unrecognized spread in the state.
Thank you for that question. Lauren, go ahead.
Are parents or guardians who have children enrolled in this school, are they receiving any sort of communication from the public health department, from the school system about what's unfolding?
Yes, we make notifications to the school. If we have a child in a school who has a certain infectious diseases, including measles, we make the school population aware that a case has been identified. And then we also attempt to, as I said, through working with the cases and interviewing and investigating the cases, trying to get a better handle on who the close contacts might be so that we can communicate with them more specifically about measures that they should take, symptoms that they should look for, how to report illnesses to their healthcare provider. And again, those messages to stay home if you're ill. If you are a close contact, you should also stay out of group settings because you can develop symptoms and you can transmit the virus when you have mild symptoms and you may not recognize that you have measles and can spread it to others.
Hey, I'm going to go to the chat real quick. We have a question from Austin McConnell. It says, do you know what areas or counties are the most unvaccinated in South Carolina?
So a couple of things that we have available. We have our 45-day school report that gives the students in schools who have the percent coverage, who have met the criteria for school entry, and that's one of our best measures in that age group. But in terms of people who are not school aged, that coverage information is not readily available.
Yeah. All right, John, go ahead, sir. John, do you still have a question? Moving on.
If you're
Tom,
asking
go
me,
ahead.
I'd already asked mine.
Okay, sure. You can lower your hand. Tom, go ahead with your question, sir.
Hey, so at this point, is this school still open? And does public health have any plans to reach out to this school or to the school district with, say, like a vaccination clinic or some other outreach?
So we are working with the school administration. The DPH does not do school closures. We do require students who have certain illnesses to be excluded. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Do you have any plans to do any kind of outreach, making vaccine more available to the school or the school district?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, part of our outreach is encouraging people to seek vaccination wherever they can get it. And we are making additional plans to increase our access to vaccination through DPH clinics. But again, there are other clinics, healthcare providers, pharmacy chains. All of those are current options where people can get vaccinated, but we are working to, as we message this out, encouraging people to get vaccinated. We are doing everything we can to make those vaccines available through DPH.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions.
And we just finished watching the briefing from Dr. Linda Bell from the South Carolina State Health Department. So let's go ahead and take a couple of minutes here on WCNC Plus. If you want to wash your hands, that'll be great. I think I'll do the same. See you on the other side of 2 minutes. All right, time right now is 8:42 on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Jane Monreal. As we close out this last stretch of Live Impact News, we are coming up now on 3 days of the government shutdown, 2 days and 20 hours, closing in on 3 days of a full shutdown. Of course, this will carry through the weekend. They made several attempts today to take a vote to try at least pass a short-term funding bill, but with that not being the case, it will stretch in through at least the beginning part of next week. A couple days ago, Julie Kay did speak to U.S. Representative Tim Moore of North Carolina and talk about some of the reaction now on the Republican side. This full interview for you now here on WCNC Plus.
So I know you were just looking at the latest. If you wouldn't mind just running us through, where are we at right now? It's 2:23 in the afternoon. What's the latest information?
So, of course, 2 weeks ago, the House passed a continuing resolution that would keep the government open through the end of November. That bill has been sent to the Senate, but unfortunately, Senate Democrats, none of the Senate Democrats, at least last I heard, were willing to vote for the continuing resolution. Now, the reason that's important, although Republicans have a majority in the Senate, they don't have the 60-vote threshold that's needed to get past the filibuster rule. So the only way that the CR is going to pass in the law is if there's a bipartisan vote with Democrats in the Senate. And I think it's important that folks understand what we passed was what's called a clean continuing resolution, or a clean CR. And what that means is there's no policy changes, there's no cuts, there's no increases. It basically just keeps everything even with what was there, and it doesn't hurt or help. It just basically keeps the government open to allow us to work through the budget process. The House has passed a number of the budget areas already. I think there's a total of 12 that have to be passed. I want to say we've passed 7 of those already. I could be off on my numbers, but the point simply being that we need to finish getting all of that done to get a comprehensive budget that moves the country forward. And as I said, I'm just really disappointed that that the Democrats are making this a partisan issue and are willing to shut down the federal government. As you may know, I filed a bill this week that would actually mandate that disaster relief continue even if there is a shutdown. Now, where I'm talking to you today, I'm in Rutherford County right now. I was just a little bit ago up in Lake Lure and up in Chimney Rock, and I was actually in some other areas up in Henderson County checking to see how things are coming along in terms of debris removal and work. And I was glad to see that work has not stopped right now. And so I was there. I wanted to see, and I'm told that the work should continue unless this turns into some really protracted shutdown. So I think it's very important if this get resolved as soon as possible.
And I'm glad you brought up Helene recovery. That's been a huge point, especially the 1-year mark was just this weekend. Is there a threshold that you've heard that, if this continues for so many weeks or onwards, that's when they'd have to revisit stopping?
I'm told that if it gets to close to 30 days, that's when it could be a problem. So if this thing can get resolved in under 30 days, we should not see, as I'm told, any issues. But I don't want to take the chance of that, right? I don't want to take the chance if we find ourselves, unfortunately, back here, in a few months or something. I want to make sure that disaster relief, that all this work continues on without interruption.
I want to talk healthcare too. I saw that you posted something about how a pause like this impacts rural hospitals in particular. But I know the Democrats just held, the North Carolina Democrats just held a press conference a couple hours ago talking about the impacts that they say they would see if this continuing resolution were to go through. I know you said that this doesn't have any changes, but they were mentioning the subsidy that was at one point temporary for the Affordable Care Act. So what is your take on the Democrats saying that this continuing resolution would impact healthcare costs, and what is your take on not passing it also impacting healthcare costs?
So the ACA subsidies are only an issue at the end of the year. There's no reason to have to deal with this right now. The ACA subsidies continue through the end of the calendar year. But here's where the Democrats really are on this. What they're asking for, and this is it, don't believe me, look at their document they filed. They're wanting to roll back provisions of no health care for illegal aliens. And I believe as recently as last night, Maxine Waters from California went on record saying, of course, they want free health care for illegal aliens. So it's there. And so what's really sad on the health care side is that Democrats are choosing to shut this federal government down because they want free health care for illegal aliens. Every American ought to be outraged by that.
And then what in the bill for you says, this is positive for healthcare in North Carolina specifically?
Sure. What I would look at are the steps that we took in the one big beautiful bill to shore up Medicaid. We knew that there was a lot of abuse. We knew that there were folks that are receiving those benefits who are not disabled, who don't have a dependent child that they're having to take care of, who are simply able-bodied folks. And here's what's happening. When you have people who are getting the services who should not be getting them, then the people who really need it, the people who are, who are having health issues, who can't work, who have a child they're taking care of, they're denied the ability to get the health care that they need. And what I would like to see is us to shore up the Medicaid and the health care system so that it's not subpar health care, so that it's the best that we can provide for these populations that need it. And one of the key ways is making sure that if somebody is able-bodied, young folks who can be working and have no reason why they would need this, that those folks aren't on this and that they're actually working in a job and getting health care that way.
I know everyone's biggest question right now is how long do we think this is going to last? Of course, everyone's saying we don't know. I'm curious if you've had conversations across the aisle with Democrats, either in North Carolina or just in general, and do you have an update on your end for how conversations are going right now?
The real answer is no one knows, right? I was just on a conference call with the Speaker of the House and members of our conference, and no one knows because at the end of the day, it is Senate Democrats that are in control of whether this happens or not. Senate Republicans are all in agreement that they're going to vote for it. My understanding is that there are a couple of Senate Democrats who said they would vote for it, but it hasn't gotten to the level of the 60 votes right now. The House did its job. Like I said, we passed it 2 weeks ago. So this is entirely over in the Senate right now. And I'm hopeful that as this goes on and as that pressure comes into play, that folks will get reasonable and keep the government open. Look, we can have debates about all of these other health care policies. We can have debates about budgetary tax policy, you name it, as we work through this budget process. But there's no excuse to hold the American people hostage with a government shutdown. And the American people know, again, not trying to be partisan, but American people know that it is 100% in the court of the Democrats right now. They need to do the right thing, vote for the continuing resolution, and make sure we work through a budget before the end of the year that fully funds the government and that really keeps moving the country forward.
My last question is, of course, you represent a big part of our viewing area. What's your biggest concern for people right now in this kind of limbo?
Could you repeat that? That broke up. I'm sorry.
What's your biggest concern for the people that you represent right now as we're in this limbo where many people aren't getting paid?
Right. So, yeah, I mean, the people expect people pay enough taxes, right? They expect the government to provide the services that the government is supposed to do, right? Everything from, of course, the post office will stay open, VA will stay open, law enforcement, air traffic control, on and on, essential services. But what starts happening is like passports, people needing help with those things get affected. Some of the agencies that deal with, for example, with agriculture, deal with trade, deal with transportation. We don't need those agencies to be shut down. And here's what's crazy about it. It's not going to be permanently shut down, and all the employees are going to get paid, right? They're going to get back pay. But what's happening right now is people, aren't allowed to work, but they're still going to get paid. It's just ridiculous. And it's an absolutely wasteful thing to have happen. So we need, folks need to get real. They need to pass this CR over in the Senate, and we need to keep moving forward to get a full budget done. Look, I go back to my days when I was Speaker of the State House, when I served here. We didn't have to deal with government shutdowns. We had what's called an automatic continuing resolution. One of the other bills that I'm co-sponsoring is an automatic CR, that in the event Congress fails to adopt a budget, that there's an automatic extension. I don't think government shutdowns should ever be used as leverage by either side. We need to keep the government open and operating because taxpayers are paying for these services. At the same time, and I do support the president in, when this shutdown kicks in, he's made this clear. When there is a shutdown, that they're going to really look, they've identified where there's a lot of waste. And they're going to probably take a lot of furloughs, and they're going to eliminate jobs where they can to save money. And you know what? If we can use this as a way to get rid of waste in government, that would be a positive. But at the end of the day, I want to see the government do what it's supposed to do to take care of citizens who need that help. The taxpayers, of course, are paying for it and need to make sure that they're taken care of.
Thank you so much for taking time for this. Is there anything else that you want people to know about either this or things going on here in North Carolina?
What I'll say, at least for me, I have deemed all of my staff essential to keep them involved for constituent services. So if anybody that I represent, or frankly, if it's somebody even that's outside the district, I don't care. I mean, we'll help them. But if it's anybody that needs help, our staff's going to be working normal hours. We're going to be here. I'm here back in the district. I'm checking to make sure that whatever the federal government's supposed to be doing, that we're doing it. And if I find areas where agencies aren't stepping in doing it, we're going to have our staff try to step in the gap where they can and provide those services.
Is there anything, I know this is totally separate and I didn't warn you about this ahead of time, but the judiciary hearing here in Charlotte, I know you filed some legislation. Is there anything that you want to say about that, since that's in our district here?
Yeah. So the judiciary field hearing was really, to me, was very informative. Very powerful testimony from those witnesses. We heard from, folks who lost family members to murders. Of course, Officer Campbell, who, lost his foot in the line of duty. I mean, it's just heartbreaking stories. I can't recall a hearing that I've been in that was just as gut-wrenching, frankly, as a lot of this. And to me, it makes the point, or it drove the point home that needs to be shared more time and time again, that these aren't just statistics, that these aren't just general academic debates, that failures when it comes to making sure that dangerous criminals are off the streets lead to injury, lead to death of real people. And there were clearly some failures. No, there were absolutely some failures. And I, in my old role, we were dealing with, we passed legislation at the state house, 2 and 3 years ago that cracked down on, repeat offenders, dealing with bail policies. And what we found is that even when we would pass tough laws, is that, some judges and magistrates would sort of find different ways to go around it. That's unacceptable. I mean, that's why we have a letter signed by most of the members of Congress in North Carolina asking that particular magistrate judge who turned this guy loose, who killed Irina Zarutska, before this happened, that let him out on bond on other charges, that she not be in this position. I mean, there is no excuse. There is no excuse for anybody having to live in fear over, with dangerous criminals roaming around, somebody who's got like long rap sheets with multiple felonies. They should be in prison, not out on the streets where they can terrorize and hurt people. And so I think the more that we can bring attention to what's happened, not to, I think there needs to be accountability to the failures in the system. But more importantly to me are finding the changes to make sure this does not happen again. And this field hearing was I believe, was very informative along those lines and is going to lead to legislation. Now, when I speak of legislation, there's actually a bill that I filed. And that bill would, in I guess what I would call in outrageous instances where a judicial official, a magistrate or judge, have granted bond to someone who then goes out and injures or murders someone, to look at civil liability. Now, it's not just a negligence standard. It would be like gross negligence or just really almost intentional willful misconduct, just the kind of thing that the average person looks at and just says, this was outrageous. This makes no sense. I think if you have provisions in place like that, it's going to cause people to think twice before they just randomly let these dangerous criminals out on the street. So that's going to be one legislative fix that we're looking at. And then others will be probably will be conditioning federal dollars to areas that have, that try to mandate what's called cashless bail policy. And this has been a big thing from the left, where they're trying to get away from where folks have to post a cash bond to get out of jail, or they want them to be able just to sign a personal affirmation that they'll come back for court. That does not guarantee public safety. And so we very likely are going to use federal funds as an incentive, or as a deterrent, if you will, when it comes to local governments adopting policies that make it easy.
In that interview with Representative Tim Moore, talking to our Julie Kay just days ago, regarding reaction to the current government shutdown, expected now to go into next week. Hope you join us again on WCNC Charlotte at 11. Have a good night.